The music legend who took listeners to Margaritaville and served up cheeseburgers in paradise has passed away. Singer-songwriter Jimmy Buffett was 76 years old. The announcement of his death came on his webpage overnight, saying Jimmy passed away peacefully on the night of September 1st, surrounded by his family, friends, music, and dogs. Back in May, Buffett was hospitalized and forced to postpone part of his tour. At the time, there was no word on why, and no cause of death has been released. Buffett was known for his breezy hits and barefoot performances, all explaining life as a beach bum.
On my front porch swing, smell those shrimp, hey, they're beginning to boil. Bubble, 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 bubble. Wasting away again in Margaritaville.
Looking for that lost shaker of salt. Our CNN's Patrick Oppmann joins us now from Havana, Cuba, which is a perfect place to talk about Jimmy Buffett. Patrick, you posted on Instagram this morning that you were very lucky to have this unique friendship that somehow spanned decades. Jimmy felt a special bond with Cuba. You write, there's a picture of you with the legend right there. Let's begin with that. Your relationship to Buffett, his bond with Cuba, tell us about it.
I came here for the first time with Jimmy Buffett in 1998 for Pope John Paul's II's historic visit. And I was a college kid. I was just pinching myself that I got to translate and kind of be his guide at the time. And he did some CNN interviews, and that kind of got my foot in the door with CNN. And many years later, all of that time, I stayed in touch with him, amazingly enough. And I came back here as a correspondent, and he would start calling me up and say, oh, you know, there's my man in Havana. There was a lot of news, as you remember. You were coming here too back then, Jim. And Jimmy Buffett was just a constant presence. And I always used to joke that it's because we had the best internet in town, but he really had a deep love for Cuba, for Cubans, for the music here, and as well, he didn't like the idea of governments telling him, you know, where he could go and who he could play music with. So sometimes he snuck here, sometimes he came here more legally, but he always dreamed of coming to Cuba, had a connection to this place, and really felt it in his blood.
And it was about his dad too, right? His father had a connection there, his family had a connection there.
Oh, very much so. His father celebrated his first birthday on a sailing boat in the Havana, right behind me, the Havana Harbor, and that's the basis of Havana daydreaming. So, you know, Jimmy Buffett dreamed of a Cuba that was more prosperous, where Americans like him could come back and forth more easily, and he loved this country. There are parrot heads around the world. There are some here in Cuba as well. He would come and play in people's backyards here. He wasn't famous, and he sort of loved that. That people didn't know him, and he could just go jam with amazing Cuban musicians and just soak up the music. And so every time he would come to town, he would let me know. We would hang out. He as well loved to play concerts for the U.S. Embassy staff here, and in particular for the Marines that guard the embassy. He didn't feel they always got their due, and so every time he would come to town, he would say to me, hey Patrick, you know, let me know who's in charge of the embassy. We'll go over to their house, we'll go over to the number 2's house, we'll go over to where the Marines live, and we'll play a little concert for them. And he wouldn't do it to get credit or make a big deal about it. And so you'd be there with these 20-something-year-old Marines, and you know, they have a job that's both boring and dangerous. And this was, I was hearing from some of them today, the best part of their service, not just in Cuba, but ever, that they were hanging out with this music legend, playing a guitar in the backyard. And the thing that always struck me, Jim, is that these Marines were singing songs that are older than they are, and they knew all the words. They just loved it. It really talks, you know, to me about how much his music was able to span the generations and connect with people, you know, years after he wrote these songs. And it was a way for him to give back to U.S. diplomats and service members working overseas. And he didn't do it in a big showy way. He did it just to say, thanks, guys. And for them, it was just such a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, that was the great thing about Jimmy Buffett, and it you know, it was something we could sing along with, you know, our baby boomer parents and grandparents and so on. And the words were so easy to pick up on. Cheeseburger in Paradise, Margaritaville, Son of a Sailor. I mean, Strangers and Attitudes, Strangers and Latitudes. I mean, so many great songs, so many great lines. Tell us about the last time you talked to Jimmy Buffett. What was that like?
He called me as he always did, out of the blue. How's my man in Havana? This was in the spring. He said he was planning another trip here that he never got to take. And then it was very special. He was in Key West and he was playing a concert that night. And he asked me to go down to the Malecon here where you can pick up the radio station from Key West and to listen to his concert, which we did with some friends. And I didn't know at the time that was going to be the last concert I'd ever hear from Jimmy Buffett. And we'll be raising a glass to him tonight in Cuba, as people will around the world, and toasting him, because he was a special man. He was just like you'd expect him to be. He did not have a big ego. He loved adventure,
That's so
the Caribbean.
true.
He was a storyteller, the stories he told in his music, and he was a good friend. I consider myself incredibly lucky, and to have that call and to tell me, hey, I'm having a concert. See if you can pick up the signal. And there's certain spots in Havana where you can pick up that radio signal, and it was a great show. And he entertained so many people over the years, brought so much joy to so many people, including here in Cuba.
Yeah, when I met him in 2016 down in Havana, he could not have been a nicer guy, just so laid back, also just as friendly as could be. I mean, he did not come across as somebody who was like this, music legend. You can't get near him because his people are all around him. I just walked right up to him and I said, listen, my mom is a huge Jimmy Buffett fan. I have to get a picture with you so I can convince her that I met Jimmy Buffett. And I brought one of her albums right here. I have it right here. Jimmy Buffett, you had to be there. You're right, Patrick. They're going to be toasting him in Havana tonight, but also in Key West, all around the Caribbean, all of Jimmy Buffett's haunts. There's going to be old guys at bars crying in their beers and their margaritas later on tonight, but for a good reason, because he was such a legend. Patrick Oppmann, thanks very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great to see you, Patrick. All right, we'll be right back.